In this episode, I am talking all things Wheel of Time and knitting. I am hosting a Wheel of Time knit along, which you can learn more about on my Instagram at Hugacrow Knits. I will be sharing a pattern roundup inspired by Wheel of Time characters. And I'll also be talking a little bit about the book series as well as the TV series and what I am looking forward to this season. My name is Christina. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm coming to you from Sacramento, California, where I live with my husband Joel, my daughter Elliot, and our very large cat Nissa. Today I'm so excited to be sharing something near and dear to my heart, which is a Wheel of Time inspired knitting extravaganza, I guess. I am going to be hosting a knit along. This will be my first ever knit along that I've hosted over on my Instagram. So check out my Instagram. It is Hugacrow Knits, just like the name of this channel. And I am going to be hosting the Wheel of Time knit along, or KAL. That's WOTKAL on my Instagram. So if you are a knitter and a Wheel of Time fan, I'm not sure how much overlap there is in that Venn diagram, but I'm assuming that there's a substantial crossover of the knitting community and the Wheel of Time fandom. So I am hoping that we can all join this KAL together and knit some patterns that remind us of Wheel of Time characters or the world of Wheel of Time while the second season is coming out. So the knit along will start September 1st, and I actually had a hard time figuring out how long episodes would be coming out for. I know when they did the first season, they batched the episodes together. So I'm just going to set the time for 2 months because not everyone will be, finishing the second season all at the same time. So we'll be running through September and October for the knit along. Hi, editing Christina here. I was hoping to add in some B-roll of the prizes for this knit along, but I don't have everything all together yet. So I just want to mention that there will be at least one prize, maybe two prizes, and they will include these really cool Wheel of Time theme stickers, as well as a skein of yarn from Cattails Yarn Company. The amazing dyer Cat has a whole series of Wheel of Time themed yarn, and you should check her store out on Etsy. There are some really amazing colorways there based on the Wheel of Time series. So, uh, without further ado, I'm just gonna go into my pattern roundup that I have prepared. I made a Ravelry favorites bundle that I will link to in the description. And all of these patterns that I talked about today will also be linked. But I am going to record my screen and put it up so you can kind of see what I am looking at as I go through these. So here we are in the bundle. I am going to start with Rand Althor. And I think that we have to talk about Rand's fuzzy sweater. So in season 1, episode 1, Rand wears this sweater that is very noticeable. I'll put a picture in here. And someone on in on the internet in Ravelry Land has actually recreated that sweater. So I wanted to shout that out. The pattern is Rand's Fuzzy Sweater by Kate Leonard. And I it says that it's sized with spreadsheets, so there's no size limit. So that's awesome. And you can see in these pictures that the sweater is striped. So in the episode, his sweater is definitely, it has some striping, but it almost looks like um, what happens when you have multiple dye lots, and you're trying to like blend into one. And to me, the sweater looks like it is knit from like a pencil roving, more than a like a spun yarn. So if I were to knit a recreation of Rand's sweater, I think I would actually use the Felix pullover by Amy Christoffers. And I would make just a couple alterations. I wouldn't do the eyelets on the shoulders, um, which is in the pattern. You can take those out. And I believe the pattern does call um, for an unspun yarn, which I think is very fitting with Rand as a shepherd. Um, it looks to me like he has knit this sweater himself out of some roving from their sheep. I think that that is probably what the costume designer was trying to impart. But his sweater has a like no neckband, I think. I believe it looks like it's just cast on, and then gone immediately into um, the raglan increases, and then really minimal ribbing on the cuffs and the hem. So I would use the Felix pullover as a base, and then I would just make those alterations. No collar, and then really minimal ribbing. Um, yeah. So the one of the potential yarns here is Istex, Istex, Let Lopi. Oh, it's not Plutelopi. Well, I would definitely use an unspun roving, and even like a Nutaden or Plutelopi, and I would potentially even like mix dye lots to try to get the effect of that striping without it being hard stripes in the garment, because I think that's more what is going on with that knit garment. So, moving on to the second character that I want to talk about, and that is Egwene Alvier. I again, I have um, two patterns. The first is the Egwene cardigan by Fable Knitwear. And I wanted to bring this one up because it is named for Egwene. And I do think it is a beautiful cardigan. I think the, the two rivers, they've got wool. We know this. If you're a fan of the books, at least. I don't know if they talk about it much in the show. Um, but yeah, I think that it's a very classic cardigan. I could definitely see um, Egwene wearing it. Um, so, other than the Egwene cardigan, um, I really think that the Catch My Heart cardigan by Hoey Locatelli really reminds me of the clothing that Egwene is wearing in the Wheel of Time episode, or in the first season of Wheel of Time. Um, I think it's the side catch. I know that she has that in the clothes that she wears, even though they're not knit, they're cloth. But I yeah, this cardigan really reminds me of her, and I think like the cabling on the back is also very, I don't know, it feels very fine. Egwene is the innkeeper's daughter, so they definitely have a little bit more money than other folks from the Two Rivers, and I could definitely see her wearing just a beautiful cardigan like this. So this would actually be my choice. I do love the Egwene cardigan, but in terms of the character herself, I think that the Catch My Heart cardigan by Joey Locatelli is a real winner. So next I have Nynaeve Almira. And for Nynaeve, I had a kind of a hard time at first deciding what pattern I thought best suited her. Um, but then I pulled out of my like deep favorites in Ravelry this pattern by Melody Hoffman, or B Mandarines on uh, YouTube, and it is the Ina mitts. So the reason why I think these mitts would be something Nynaeve would have is because she's out in the morning, she's picking herbs, she's the town wisdom, she's like not sleeping in. I'll say that. So she's got to keep her hands warm as she's going to harvest the stuff that she needs, the herbs for healing. And I love the rustic quality of the wool. I think that is very fitting of a character from the Two Rivers. And the little posies on these, I think, is what really sells it for me. Um, I think, this is what I imagine her house looks like. One of those, like, you know, really cottage core um, dream houses that you see on Pinterest. That is what I think Nynaeve's house looks like. So yeah, that is my pick for Nynaeve. Next up, we have Matt. Um, so Matt Cawthon is quite the character, and I don't know that he would wear a lot of knits, but I have selected the Sophie Scarf by Petite Knit format. And this is one of those things where if you know, you know. This would be knit in a bright red, not any of these other colors. Um, and yeah, if you know, you know. And if you don't know, I don't want to give any spoilers. So keep reading. I think that they will cut the storyline out of the series. I think if you're familiar with the books, this little section, I think w they will not do it because it would be very hard to do for TV, and the storyline is very ancillary, and I think that they're going to achieve what needs to be done through that storyline in some other way. So, Matt Cawthon gets a Sophie scarf, a bright red Sophie scarf. That is my pattern choice for him. Next up is Perrin Ibarra. Um, I think that Perrin would wear the heck out of a Grassmore Jacket by Marie Wallen. This cardigan or jacket, I guess, has these beautiful cables. They kind of remind me of, cables oftentimes remind me of like metal work. Um, especially the really like Celtic knot style ones. So this is what I chose for our blacksmith Perrin. I think he'd look great in it, and it would keep him warm. I don't know how much he would wear it in the forge, but on the road, he would definitely need a nice warm sweater. Next, we have Elaine Tricont, daughter heir of Andor, and for um, for Elaine, I have chosen the Enya by Marie Wallen. So this pattern, I think maybe the color of it might have drawn me to think of Elaine. She's often described as having really like rosy cheeks and pink coloring. So I just saw this and I thought, Elaine. The um, the cut is really polished, I think, and the cables look very minimalistic and refined. So I think, and very upscale. So I think that this one is Elaine through and through. If you have only watched the series and you don't know who Elaine is yet, um, I'm excited for you to meet her. She's my favorite character, so I hope that the series does her justice. Um, yeah, the next pattern is for another character that we're going to be meeting this season, and that is Avienda. So, I actually had a really hard time at first figuring out the pattern that I wanted to attribute to Avienda. And that is because if you're familiar with the books, you know that Aiel live in the waste, which is like a desert. So it's very hot, and I don't think that she's wearing a lot of knitwear there. But after thinking about it for a while, I landed on the Wheelwright shawl by Pearl Soho. And part of this is because I, um, I mean, wheel, Wheel of Time, Wheelwright, shawl. There was a little too much symmetry there, so I wanted this pattern to be in this bundle, but I also think that it does fit Avienda's character well. Um, Partly for reasons that I won't say because no spoilers, but also the Aiel they veil their faces, and I think that I don't know exactly what the veil is going to look like in the series. I've watched the trailer a couple times, and the glimpses of Avienda are very brief, but I think that this partially could be a veil and partially could be something that happens later on in the story that I won't say too much about. But I like this pattern for her, and I really like this pattern a lot in general, and would love to knit this one day. I think it looks so beautiful. Okay. Last but not least, I have picked a pattern for Maureen, Dama Dread, our favorite Aes Sedai. Well, maybe not, she's not your favorite. Um, I'm not sure. Oh no, I know who my favorite Aes Sedai is. It's Varen. um, I think we're meeting her in this season as well, which I'm very excited about. But I have um, chosen the Cardigan by Marie Wallen. You might notice that this bundle is very Marie Wallen heavy. I just think her patterns really fit with kind of the Wheel of Time in my mind. So I did use her patterns pretty frequently, but this one is a specific project by the Ravelry user Wally1. And this is a longer version of the Yell cardigan. So definitely some alterations made here, but I just think that the colors of the stranded color work are very blue Aja, and yeah, I just think that it's a great look. The other reason why I thought that this really screamed Maureen was that in the series she wears a lot of, when I say series I mean the show series. I'm realizing now that the books are also a series. But in the shows she wears a lot of bell-shaped garments, so like belted jackets that go out, and in the previews for this season definitely a dress that goes quite bell-shaped at the bottom. And I think that the silhouette of the Yell cardigan is quite bell-shaped when it is worn. And I just thought that that shape is very reminiscent of Maureen. So that was my pick for her. So I am going to be, of course, knitting along in the Wheel of Time and knit along. And what I have chosen to knit is the Enya mitts. So the pattern that I selected for Nynaeve, which is funny. She's like one of my least favorite characters. Um, but I wasn't ready to cast on a whole cardigan. So I am going to be knitting the mitts with this combination of yarn. So this will be the main color, and then these will be the stems for the little posies, and these will be the little baubles. And this is Donegal Lamb's Wool by Rowan. Yeah, Rowan. And this is a discontinued yarn. I picked it up in a D-stash from Facebook Marketplace. But I think that these colors will look really great together in um, that mitt pattern. I'm going to talk a little bit about the book series of Wheel of Time, which is 14 books. They are by Robert Jordan, and then the last three, I believe, were written posthumously by Brandon Sanderson. I took about 7 years to get through the entire series, which is totally okay. 14 books is a lot. And recently I've been listening to them on audiobooks so that I can knit or feed Elliot or do whatever I need to do dishes, etc., while I've been reading. And that has been really awesome, making the switch to audiobooks. So always remember that listening to books is reading books. I know there's a lot of stigma around audiobooks. So on the book cover, I believe, they compare the books to Lord of the Rings. They say something like it was like newspapers, says something like, um, Robert Jordan expands upon the world that Tolkien began to create, or something along those lines. And I do think that there are some similarities between Lord of the Rings and Wheel of Time. So if you are a Lord of the Rings fan, I think likely you'll like Wheel of Time as well. And the first book to me does read a bit like Lord of the Rings fan fiction. That might be a hot take, but there's a lot of kind of like fantasy tropes and similar situations that happen between like the first book of Lord of the Rings and the first book of Wheel of Time. After that, I think they completely diverge. Um, until maybe I would say the last book, book 14 of Wheel of Time. But I would not say it's like Lord of the Rings. I would say it's like if you took all of the battles of Lord of the Rings and also some like Marvel, like superhero crazy stuff, and you like slam them all into one and also made them super interesting by focusing on individual characters' points of view. So I, having just finished the last book, I would highly recommend jumping into the series. It is worth it. um, I have heard the Wheel of Time series compared to nerd homework, and I think there's some truth to that. Books 7 through 10 are referred to as the slog, and there is some slogging in there. The pace really slows down. The characters, they like don't go anywhere. You're just listening to their internal monologuing for like hundreds of pages. Um, and so there's definitely some validity to that, but there are still redeeming parts of those stories, or and not even redeeming. There's still very interesting parts of the stories that you're getting interspersed through some of these other parts that feel a little bit more sloggy. Um, they are they're definitely developing the characters and they're developing the world, and you're getting a lot more into the politics of certain groups and the thought process of the characters. And so I think they're worthwhile, but I do acknowledge that the pace slows down significantly in that middle range, 7 to 10. Um, I I jotted this down because I thought it was crazy. Someone did the stats for this. There are in the books 147 distinct points of view that are you hear from, and there are 2,782 named characters. This series is the only word that really describes it is epic. There is so much, there are so many characters and so much character development. And one of the harder things about reading the series over time is actually trying to keep track of characters. What I really struggled with was keeping track of who is a dark friend. Like who are the evil characters, because oftentimes you're just hearing their perspective, and to them there's nothing like evil about being a dark friend. They're just, it's their own self-interest that they're preserving. So it's hard to keep track. So one recommendation to read them over a shorter period of time, maybe you'll be able to remember all the dark friends, or just keep a list. I wish I had done that. Um, there is a ton of inner monologuing, as I mentioned. So if that is something that doesn't interest you, like hearing the characters' thoughts, and like them struggling with different decisions that they have to make and like complaining about stuff and things like that, then it might not be for you, because that is a huge part of the series. Um, and the other thing that really kind of bothers me about the series, this is the one thing that I did find annoying, is the binary between men and women. And just there was lots of like talk about like, oh, like men are like this and women are like this and we'll never understand each other. And I think that that was certainly partially a product of the time that the books were written in, but I'm glad that that part has not made its way into the TV show because that was, for me, the most frustrating part of those books. Um, I do love that. I think that Wheel of Time has done something better than, or a little differently than other fantasy novels, which is giving a clear, um, a very clear explanation for plot armor. So, plot armor is what kind of we as the readers refer to as like why our main characters don't die in series. And it doesn't really make sense, like, oh, this one character just survives through everything, and the chances of that are very small. But in Wheel of Time, there it's very clear that our main characters um, are ta'veren, which doesn't make them invincible, but it gives an explanation to why they make it through so many things and why all these crazy things are happening around them, which I think is nice to just have like as a part of your mental like understanding of the book, like, yeah, like this is all happening and like they made it out of this scrape and that scrape because they're ta'veren. And I do really appreciate that about this series. And the other thing that I really appreciate, especially coming off of the last book, of course, not every character makes it. Some characters do die. And the way that they die in Wheel of Time feels very satisfying and like not like their deaths were for nothing. And I'm kind of, in my mind, I'm comparing it to Game of Thrones, where it feels like the point is to just kill characters. And I think that that is, I love Game of Thrones as well. And I do appreciate that um, they're taking the plot armor out of, of the series, um, and that is good. But if we've got a very different thing going on in Wheel of Time, and I do appreciate that the character deaths feel important. I'll say that. Um, so yeah, if you're thinking about jumping in, I would do it. Um, it's a great series. You can get through the slog if you've started and you're in the slog. Just keep going. The last four books are awesome. Or I guess the last three books really are when we really get things moving again. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the TV series. If you don't haven't watched season one, I wouldn't listen to this because there are definitely going to be some spoilers for season one. Um, I'll preface talking about this to say that I am pretty forgiving. I am not one of those readers who's like, it is nothing like the books and therefore I hate it. I understand that changes have to be made to adapt um, books to TV or movie, although I will never forgive whoever made the changes to Harry Potter 4. Uh, those are unacceptable. But other than that, I am a very forgiving viewer of TV based on books that I have read. I find it really helpful and interesting to watch the series, mostly because when I'm reading a book, I am not great at um, really visualizing and imagining what everything looks like and what characters look like. And so it's helpful for me to put those pictures to what's in my head. So obviously I finished the series after season 1 of Wheel of Time came out, and now those characters in my brain have taken on the look of the actors, which I quite like because then I feel like I see the world better. Um, the TV show is definitely different than the books. There's no way that they can have that many characters and that many things that happen in 14 whole books. They just can't do it. And so I went into it knowing that they were gonna collapse some storylines, collapse some characters, and I was really okay with everything that they did. There was some, like, they didn't really, it seemed weird to add in new characters that like weren't in the series when there's already so many, but whatever. The one thing that I think was a terrible choice, and this is of course all over the internet if you like Wheel of Time, Perrin's wife. That, to me, that indicates that they have no intention of continuing or of staying true to Perrin's storyline in the book, because think there's any way that they can I don't think there's any way he can come back from what happened in season 1 of Wheel of Time to go to what happens in his storyline in the books. So I think they must be intending to completely cut a lot of his arc, um, which I don't love. So yeah, Perrin having a wife. I I understand that it was the easy way out of explaining his the fear that Perrin has in the books of being too strong, of like needing to hold back to not hurt those around him and to protect everyone. I get that this was a really easy way to like immediately accomplish what, like, why he has those feelings, but I think it was a bad choice. I mentioned this when I was talking about the patterns, but I am so excited in season 2 to meet Elaine, Avienda, Varen, as well as to get our first glimpse at the Shanchen. Um, I think that'll be so fun to see those characters, and the Shanshan people, as well as the Aiel, come to life, on the big screen or the small screen. I don't know how big your screen is. So I'm really, really excited for season 2, to meet all those folks. And then, yeah, I think I'm also super curious to see the path that they take for Rand's love life. If you're familiar with the books, um, it's an interesting an interesting aspect of the books that I don't think will play very well to folks who are just watching the series and aren't already fans. So I'm curious to see how they work with what Rand is going to do in his personal life. Um, all right, I think I feel scattered, like I didn't really make uh, a coherent conversation about either of these things, but I'm so excited for season two to come out and see what changes they make, what they keep the same, and meet all of these new characters. Let me know in the comments who is your favorite character in Wheel of Time. What do you think about the series? As well as please share any patterns that you think are really um, reminiscent of the Wheel of Time characters or the world, and if you are hoping to join the knit along. Thanks so much for watching. If you want to, please like and subscribe, and then you'll hear my updates about about the pattern that I am knitting for this knit along. All right, hope to see you soon. Bye.